Hey, what's good, everyone? Just starting a new video. If you remember my last video, I had posted about a greyhound story. This is kind of the continue, and I only found this story because I was researching it because the dude said something about him being Native American. You remember that? If you watch the whole thing, you'll remember that part. He said that he was Native American or Asian. So I was like, oh shit, he might be Indian. So I looked it up, right? I just wanted to find out if he was Indian or not. So I like did more research and stuff, and turns out he wasn't Indian, which is a good thing, for us, anyways. We don't need guys out there cutting off heads, man. Dang, that's rugged. Anyways, this is the continue video. It goes into more detail about that day and about what happened, and almost about everybody on the bus, and it's just a continue video, man. Check it out, shit. Boom! If I can push that play button, there it is. Oh, hold on. And just so you know, I'm gonna be cutting, and editing a lot because this is like a 9-minute video. But I'll give you the good details. Okay. Okay.
It was around 6 p.m. on July 30th, 2008 when Vince Lee, a tall, well-built Asian man, boarded a Greyhound bus
12 years
traveling
ago,
from British
y'all.
Columbia to Winnipeg. Standing
Canada.
over 6 feet tall, he cut an
Canada,
imposing
eh?
figure. Some passengers say he seemed agitated and possibly confused as he climbed aboard, but he did not seem to be a threat. He chose a seat near the front of the bus, spoke to no one, and eventually disembarked briefly to smoke a cigarette at a rest stop. When Lee returned to the bus, he seemed dissatisfied with his original seat, choosing instead to sit next to Tim McLean towards the rear of the bus.
Is this an actual
Born on
photo?
October 3, 1985, McLean was an
I
active
think that was an
athlete and
actual
a
photo.
beloved son, father, brother, and uncle. He had a large extended family and he was known as an adventurous person who loved traveling and meeting new people. He took up employment as a carnival employee in 2008 and was returning home on Greyhound Bus
He looks like a
1170
party
through
guy for real.
Saskatchewan. He had boarded the bus earlier in the day around noon and sat in the rear one row ahead of the restroom. When Lee moved to the seat next to him, he thought nothing of it. He barely acknowledged him and proceeded to fall asleep, his head against the window and headphones in. He was awoken just 5 minutes later as Lee began to impale him in the neck. Vince Lee was not a well man. Before he boarded the bus that fateful evening, he was already showing signs of someone on the brink of a mental episode. He was observed sitting at the bus stop long before his ride was scheduled to arrive.
He does look Indian.
Emotionless and quiet, he posted a sign reading "Laptop for sale, $600 OBO" in front of his luggage and sat.
Ooh, dang.
And sat. In fact,
He was
sat
crazy.
there through the
600
entire
bucks.
night, bolt upright with his eyes open. The next morning, just hours before he would board the bus with Tim McLean, he sold his laptop to a 15-year-old boy for $60. Once Lee's gruesome actions became public, however, the computer was quickly confiscated. Vince Lee was 44 years old at the time of his arrest, having immigrated to Winnipeg, Canada from China in 2001. Although he studied computer science in China, he was unable to find steady work in Canada, moving from jobs at McDonald's to Meatland Food to Walmart, where he was eventually fired over a disagreement with a co-worker. All the while, he harbored deeply disturbing thoughts about aliens and how he had been chosen by God to vanquish them. It was only later he understood this voice to be a symptom of schizophrenia and not the work of a divine power. Lee traveled around trying to find the aliens he was supposed to destroy, and he felt he finally came to the end of his search when he saw McLean that day. McLean was the alien he was destined to kill. According to voices in his head, he was doing everyone a service by killing the sleeping man, even though now he knows it was completely wrong. There were dozens of witnesses that day when Lee changed his seat and positioned himself next to sleeping McLean.
What if he
Just
was
moments
right?
after the bus began moving, Lee calmly pulled out a massive hunting knife and began using it against McLean. The young man instantly snapped to attention and began screaming in pain and horror, a scream that haunts many of the other passengers to this day. Although he fought desperately for a few moments, he was no match for the killer. As Lee impaled McLean over and over, he was calm and methodical, never changing his expression or showing emotion. Onlookers were shocked by his lack of rage and the way he committed the killing almost robotically, stabbing him close to 60 times according to one witness. As the screams of horror filled the bus and the driver pulled urgently to the side of the road, Lee began to cut off McLean's head and dismember his body. As
Damn.
the passengers ran screaming from the bus, the driver and 2 other brave men carefully boarded the bus again to see if they could help the victim. Lee chased him away with the knife, forcing him to exit the bus and lock the door from the inside. Lee grabbed McClane's severed head and brandished it for the stunned passengers, dropping it near the door and then retreating to eat some flesh from the mutilated body. The
Ugh.
Royal Canadian Mounted Police were
I
not
didn't know
prepared
about
when
that
they
part.
received word of what happened on
That's
the
gross.
Greyhound that day. They arrived to find Lee still on the bus, and a group of men guarding the door with a crowbar and hammers. The driver had cleverly engaged the emergency immobilizer system so the killer could not attempt to drive the bus away. By 9 p.m., the police were in a standoff with Lee, and as he paced the length of the bus, trapped inside, until special
Damn.
negotiators and heavily armed tactical
Damn.
units arrived on the scene.
You hear that? They had a standoff with him, which means they were scared to go on the bus. Man, everybody was fucking scared, man.
When he tried to escape through a back window of the bus, he was tasered twice and handcuffed. Although Lee was obviously responsible for his actions that evening, Canadian law has surprisingly lax requirements for those with mental illness. Lee refused to hire a lawyer. However, those who represented him stated he could not be accountable for what he did due to his untreated schizophrenia, and the judge agreed. As a result, Lee was committed to a high-security psychiatric ward for 1 year so he could be evaluated and treated according to his condition. McClane's parents, on the other
1
hand,
year.
were looking for answers, none of which they found
Man.
that day. Their lives were shattered by their son's untimely death, and it seemed no one could be held responsible for their pain. For those who witnessed the horrific killing of Tim McClane, there can be no peace. Some tried to drink the memories away, while others have sought therapy and even moved to new locations. For many, their lives have been destroyed by the PTSD they experienced after the killing, and some are paralyzed by large crowds or loud sounds.
Wow.
The thing most of the passengers seem to recall with perfect clarity is the sound of McClane's scream as he woke to the terror of what was happening. They just can't seem to rid themselves of the sound. When police boarded the bus, they were faced with an intensely gruesome scene. Not only had McClane's remains been hacked apart, but there seemed to be some missing body parts as well. When they searched Lee, they found the victim's nose and tongue in his pocket. Findings later revealed McClane's eyes and part of his heart were never recovered, supposedly eaten by his killer that night.
What? I
The
didn't hear
horror
about
of the
that part. I was
situation
talking
took
about
its
this other
toll on
part.
everyone involved. Many
This
of the
part.
passengers
Part
from
right
that
here.
night suffered
Scott,
from recurring
watch.
nightmares and feelings of severe anxiety. The
Right
Mountie
here.
who first boarded the bus the night of McClane's death never recovered from his shock. Although he had been exposed to many gruesome and frightening scenes over the years, he could not seem to shake those bloody images from his mind. Burdened and overwhelmed by his PTSD, he finally took his life 6 years after the murder.
Rest in peace.
The
man.
trauma
Rest in
became
peace.
too much, and he could not longer do his job or handle the daily torment of his own private hell. Because Lee was a cooperative patient during his time at Selkirk Mental Health Center in Manitoba, he eventually gained more and more freedom, including the privilege of going outside and having visitors. In an even more shocking development, Lee changed his name to William Baker and was released from the facility and granted full freedom. Although McClane's parents have said they have no words for the grave injustice of this decision, Lee has been living on his own in a Winnipeg apartment since November 2016.
Yeah, check it out. I looked him up on Facebook, and he's got a creepy ass picture of himself. Like, he's just smiling like real big. It's just his face. It's creepy. I sent him a friend request. Gonna ask him some questions. I'm gonna be like, man, why'd you do it, bro? Was he really an alien? You know, who the hell knows? Was he really an alien, y'all? That's what I want to know. You know, was it really the voice of God? You know, is schizophrenia? Is voices really just a symptom of schizophrenia, or is it really a gateway to the other side? You know what I mean? A lot of questions. You know. Well, I always decide to play it cool. You know, I have all these wild thoughts. I just keep to myself. But anyways, you know. He accepts my friend request. I'm gonna ask this guy like mad questions. I'm dead serious, y'all, and I'm probably like gonna fucking like try to video chat him and record it and shit. Watch. Yeah. Anyways, to be continued.